HighBridge, a division of Recorded Books, presents Dragonglass Bowl, The Dreamwalker's Path, by Caroline J. Thibeaux. Read by Ramon de Ocampo. Prelude. Beware the Father of Storms. To stand alone at the edge of a dream. To do what no one else can do. Source unknown. In the black of night, those words haunted the monk, needling him and shredding what peace of mind he had left. As he hurried past the hypostyle hallway, he wondered if they had been visited by the Father of Storms. The nameless one hid in wait, watching from the dark as his mark unraveled a lost soul. Once marked, an unwary soul never recovered, twisting within. That unseen touch, like blight upon the soul, slowly wore down the victim until they became shadow walkers, stalking the night to do their master's bidding. It is the path to madness. For fear of alerting the guards, the monk lit only a small clay lamp that barely guided him. The meager flame cast wild, cavorting phantoms against the wall of the narrow corridor. He tried to focus on the quick slap of his sandals on the stone floor, but the low, undulating call of the wind distracted him. The rise and fall of its wail sounded derisive. The sun disk amulet around his neck gave little comfort even as he prayed for strength and for guidance. Ka amuheka. He tried an ancient invocation. His reply came in a clap of thunder rattling the roof tiles. The monk jerked, spilling the oil from his lamp. But it was not the thunder that startled him. Something tugged at his robe, though only shadows chased his steps. Without turning back, the monk redoubled his haste to reach the appointed chamber. Here, secured against the walls, heavy metal brackets held torches that banished the shadows and revealed brightly colored murals of a harvest scene. Bathed in the warm security of light, the monk took a moment to exhale and calm himself before he opened the polished, acacia wood door and walked through the arched doorway. Inside, he could smell the sweet incense intended to keep insects and night crawlers away, burning deep into the night. Light from a single brazier of fired clay cast a crimson glow around the chamber, just bright enough for him to see, bright enough to give him pause. In the center of the chamber, a bed of polished, dark wood, glass-like and reflective, stood low enough for a young boy to climb onto by himself. Warriors on horse-drawn chariots were carved along its sturdy frame, painstaking work meant to inspire an adventurous heart. A woman rose as he entered, standing across from the bed. She wore dark traveling robes, with a cowl pushed back. A proud figure, with her long, dark hair in a simple knotted braid behind her nape. "What took you so long?" she demanded tightly. Her face was drawn and lacked the vibrancy that once singled her out in a crowd. "The storm," the monk replied as another peal of thunder punctuated his words. He flinched. In truth, he had not wanted to come, not at first. He feared what he would find. The words of his old mentor came back to him. There are those who are drawn to danger like a moth to a flame. It is the chance to shine with the light. No, he reminded himself, he had no lust for adventure or for glory. Soldiers lived short lives. Books, scrolls, and a padded seat were all he needed to fulfill his life's purpose. The woman looked down on the bed where a child slept. The young boy had a talent for escaping his sleep time no matter how many eyes were put to watch over him. The bed was an enticement, a ploy for an excited young boy to sleep at night among the carved warriors surrounding him. Checking the prostrate figure, the monk wished the boy had followed his heart this night. A break in the clouds sent a clear stream of soft, silvery light through the window, illuminating the contours of the boy's face. The sensitivity in the lines of his face was unmistakable, a stamp he could not run from. Moonlight washed all color from his coppery skin. The boy lay so still he could have been cut from marble in shades of gray, a child in silent repose. I cannot wake him. You must help him, the woman pleaded this time. His brow is fevered, the monk delayed. The boy was some 6, maybe 7 years old. It is not the fever that holds him. The woman sat on the bed and took her son's listless hand, so small and so vulnerable. Catching the monk's eye, she looked down pointedly at the boy's face, her other hand pushing away the thick, black curls from his forehead, now wet from his fever. By the side of the bed, the brazier's light cast deep angles on the boy's face, but even in the low light the monk could see the rapid movement of the boy's eyes beneath his closed lids. Recalling the boy's words, the monk sucked in his breath. I saw Papa. He's going to the mountain. He dreams, he said aloud, but he could not hold back another thought. The Schreier were turbulent dreams, tainted by the hand of the Nameless One. Nervously, he glanced about the chamber. Suddenly, the shadows looked different to him, encroaching, more alive than before. He dreams too strongly, he warned. The woman nodded. But that is not what holds him. There is only one way to save him now. What way? No, I cannot. You do not know what you ask, he gasped. The path of dreams touched the father of storms. Light saved them. The thunder. The thunder sounded different to him now, like a voice of crushed stones mocking him. It is the only way. The woman caught and held his eye resolutely. You don't understand. I have never done this unaided. I cannot guarantee his safety. I cannot guarantee our safety. Do not ask this of me. It was his turn to plead. He will die if you do not, she rebuked. With difficulty, the monk forced himself to look away. Light save him. How could he do this? No, he breathed softly. A whimper, desperate and shaken. If he misspoke just one word, it would be the end. He did not lust for adventure. If you don't do this, he is lost to us. You know this, the woman persisted. He is different, special. You've always known that, she began, when a tortured scream tore from the boy. The child arched convulsively on his bed, even as his mother tried to hold him down. The mother's eyes were wide and harrowed. At the foot of the bed, a slow spread of red bloomed, soaking the sheet covering the boy. We are out of time! She grabbed the monk's arm, pulling him closer to the bed. Something brushed against the monk's neck. He whipped around, but only saw shadows, more of them than there should have been. The storm should have alerted him. He should have been prepared for this. Light help him, he should have known. She was right. They were out of time. Whatever the consequences, he had little choice now. He was committed. The wind, or something, shrieked outside. Trembling, he closed his eyes tight, drawing from memory the chant he had heard only once before. Hurry, the woman urged him. The monk fought to concentrate as the storm raged outside, closer, defiant of his actions. Red lights flashed across his closed eyes as lightning whipped and railed, striking something in a crash. Even with his voice raised, he could scarcely hear himself over the raucous. With his eyes still closed, he noted when the torches were snuffed out, because his vision went dark again. Gusts of wind drove through the open window, assaulting him. He struggled against the offensive, barely holding himself upright. The enormity of what he faced threatened to engulf him. What could one man do? He did not seek glory. Books, scrolls, and a padded seat, that was all he yearned for. all he ever wanted. "Oh, light! Oh, light! Help!" Uttering the last words of his chant, he shook with fear. His eyes now opened, he swept his hand over the boy's head in a slicing gesture. Light exploded in the chamber, blinding and slamming him back against the wall. "Ashar, forgive me," he whispered, before obscurity overcame him. 1. A scent in the wind. They walk between the silence of light and darkness, apart from all, hidden in plain view beyond sight. A fisher-wife's tale. In the space between sleep and wake, fear burgeons deep in a place of knowing, before the heart or mind is roused. Breath is held to avert this unease, and to deny it at all cost. In the market stalls, vendors jostled for buyers, their voices ragged and strained. Vats of oil, fish, and spices quickly exchanged hands for coin, as if the merchants were eager to be on their way. Their veiled glances to each other vouch what they know, what they dare not speak aloud. Something approaches, something that has lain in wait and will wait no more. Amongst the clamor of the market, a whisper slithered through the streets, a cold caress that gave no comfort from the hot noon sun. It turned heads as it moved along the streets and alleyways, rippling past fountained courtyards and mansions, breathing through cracks and windows, arrow slits and recesses. Torches sputtered in its wake, throwing shadows that convulsed and roiled against the gleaming white walls as the whisper snaked down hypostyle halls and the corridors, searching for one who would listen. Servants paused their activity, the sleeves of their white robes flowing, their hands moving without thought in an intricate sign against evil. Even the stoic guardsmen stood straighter. Hackles on their bare, thick-necked shoulders stirred in readiness. Men, women, and children alike mouthed one word, a word they dared not voice. Jinn. They clutched their amulets and professed their oath to the light. Baneful spirits were known to lurk where no eyes could see. They lived in the everlasting night, promising to swallow the sun in eternal gloom, slipping into the dreams of men to lure them to their doom. Surely the light would shield them from the Jinn. Surely the light would protect them all. All Ellarians knew their birthright. Those who could trace their bloodline knew they were defenders of the light. Ellaria. In the old tongue, it meant to stand by the light. All knew that the mighty Dominion of Ellaria stood in the light. Yet deep within their hearts, a thought lingered. Night was fast approaching. Taking shelter from the simmering noon sun behind the obelisk, Bhryen froze. A shiver ran down his spine. A chill danced upon his skin. It touched an echo from deep within his memory, one he could almost grasp, and one he feared to recall. Despite the bright noon, he felt unnerved and quickly stepped out again into the glare of the day. He wiped the sweat from his forehead with the long sleeve of his undyed tunic. The rains this year were late, holding the city captive. Unrelenting heat clamped down upon them like a vice. This weather also brought a flood of pilgrims to Darkazarn, in search of redemption. They brought alms for any transgression against the rays of the Ashar. Bhryen observed that the people exchanged nervous glances. He frowned, thinking there were already stories spreading about the Jinn turning the milk sour, stealing the wash, or leaving a soldier without a stitch on in the morning. Those were just the tamer stories. Others spoke of a gutted candle flame, the rustle of leaves where there was no wind, or a voice, soft in the quiet with no one around. Even darker tales told of the Jinn carrying away children and young women, never to be seen again, and of creatures that moved in the shadows, part shadow, part something else. All this was said, of course, when the backs of the priests were turned. The temple did not approve of such talk, though the stories were rife among the other boys in his class. Even the hot weather was blamed on the jinn. Rising from deep within the bowels of the earth and whisking away the clouds, all for some sly, distant machination aimed at stealing your soul. It might be true, he thought, and for a moment he could have sworn that he caught a whiff of ashes in the air, so strong he could almost taste it. And then it was gone. An image of a place tantalized him. A memory so close. He knew it, and yet it was beyond him. The monks who schooled him would be quick to put a mind with such fancies to work. Shadows lurk in a vacant mind, was the monk's favorite warning. Shadows, like all creatures of darkness, were servants of the Neshar, the antithesis of the Ashar. Though the clergy refused to consider, let alone utter the name, they could not bury talk of the jinn. In the minds of the common people, the jinn were very much alive. "Bhryen!" Bhryen's head whipped around to the tall boy walking toward him. The striking figure, dressed in a smart blue uniform of a tunic, belted at the waist, with matching trousers, waved to him. Raki et Husari, et meaning blood son of Husari, had been the first boy to befriend Bhryen when he came to live at the palace. At 15, he was a year older than Bhryen. "You got your uniforms." Bhryen could not help feeling a pang of envy at his friend. Raki was free to choose his career, and perhaps one day become a champion of renown. Raki grinned, stretching out his arms for Bhryen to admire. Then, as he caught Bhryen's eye, turned to see a fragment of straw on his shoulder. Grimacing, he removed it. "What have you been doing?" Bhryen laughed. "Something alarmed the horses, and Nazari needed help at the stables. As firstborn son, he might inherit father's legacy as stablemaster, but he knows I have the touch with the horses," Raki said smugly. "What will he do when you're gone?" Raki looked back a little wistfully toward the stables. "A soldier goes where he is told," he recited, turning his back squarely to the stables. Under Dominion laws, only first sons could take up their father's title and legacy, so, as the second son of the palace stablemaster, Raki was free to choose his own vocation. Everyone knew Raki would choose a military career. He was born for it. Following the warrior's code, his long black hair was tied at his nape, unadorned without braids. In his crisp new uniform, there was a calm confidence to Raki that Bhryen admired. Raki easily became the unannounced leader of the group of boys Bhryen knew. Braids were not allowed until a boy was confirmed as a soldier in the Dominion's ranks, so most recruits wore their hair either unbound or tied back at their nape as Raki had done. Every inch of Raki looked as a soldier should. "You could be a horse master for your company," Bhryen offered. "That would be difficult, since the war with Radosha ended." "No, but I will go wherever they send me." He looked uncertain. "They will," Bhryen assured him. Raki would have no problem being accepted into the ranks of the military. As a true-blooded Ellarian, Raki could trace his family's bloodline far back in the Dominion, and his family stood in the light, with no taint of darkness in his blood. Only purebloods like Raki could take up the sword and ensure a promising military career where he could become a champion and earn the silver key of distinction. Like the heroes of old, he could have songs sung about him. A song about a person's life immortalized them in memory, never dying or fading away with the winds. In death, heroes were taken up to the halls of valor, where the great champions waited, feasting and honing their skills. They would be called upon on the day of the last battle against the Evernight. Even the jinn could not obliterate a song sung about a hero. Every boy yearned to have an epitaph recorded at the temple for all time. He would never be forgotten or lost in time. "Never mind the horses," I've been looking all over for you, Raki exclaimed. We're going to play tackle ball. Azid's been spoiling for a rematch. It's about time we teach him a lesson. Azid was the leader of the group of scribes Bhryen and Raki studied with. Knowledge of the history of Ellaria's military might was a must for all the boys, but especially the scribes and the recruits, so these two groups were put into a separate classroom to further their studies. I can't. Bhryen's shoulders sagged. This was clearly not the game to miss. It won't take long. They're just scribes, and we have to be home for dinner. No one wants to miss the feast of the ancestors. Come on, Bhryen. I want to watch Azid's face when you give him the slip again. Raki wore a wicked smile. Tackle ball consisted of two opposing teams trying to keep a leather ball moving toward a designated goal through kicks and headbutts, and sometimes a lot more tackling, as the game got closer to the end. Though not as tall as some of the other boys, Bhryen was quick on his feet and as slippery as an eelfish. He enjoyed the exhilaration the game gave him. I really can't. He made a face, showing his regret. Brother Sinoan wants my help with a task. At Al-Majid? There's no schooling till the new year comes. Bhryen smiled sheepishly. I offered. What? Sometimes I don't understand you, Bhryen. Had I known, I would have put off the game. Azid's got something planned, I can tell. Raki looked thoughtful and a little uncertain now. Can't you change it? Tell him you need the day off. Tell him something. You know he won't mind. Bhryen opened his mouth to agree, but hesitated. This was his chance to prove his worth to his friends. It felt good to be needed, and he wanted to show that they could count on him. But he had given his word to Brother Sinoan. That counted too. Besides, the monk had been good to Bhryen. I don't know. He bit his lip. Come on, Bhryen. This will be the last game of the year. The season of Al-Majid starts tomorrow. It'll be prayers and fasting till the new year. Brother Sinoan will understand. We'll be champions for the rest of the year. Think of it. Yes, the quiet monk would understand. Sorry, he managed. I gave him my word. The other boys... He trailed off, unable to explain. Raki frowned. I wish I'd known this. I don't trust Azid, he admitted. The Jinn take Azid, Bhryen offered with a weak smile. Ha! I'd pity the Jinn. Azid will probably torture the thing with a lecture of the rules of what it should and should not do. Raki pinched his nose as he spoke in mockery of Azid. Bhryen had to laugh at that. If you change your mind, Bhryen, you know where we'll be. Raki strode off, obviously needing a new plan for his rematch. Bhryen stood watching his friend. It would have been an exciting game, the game of the year. As the most senior of the scribes, Azid could only be described as pompous and condescending. None of the recruits cared for the boy. Bhryen did not blame them. For a moment, he considered asking Brother Sinoan for a postponement of their project. Surely the monk would not mind. After being so soundly beaten in their last game, why did Azid want a rematch? Then, pushing away his thoughts, Bhryen hurried on to meet with Brother Sinoan. Keeping his word to Brother Sinoan was a matter of honor, which was why he was here in the first place. He had to remember that. Bhryen counted himself lucky to be here. Dar Khazarn was the capital city of the great Dominion of Ellaria, named for her first king, Khazarn the Great. The most fabulous city in all the known lands, a shining beacon of the light nestled among the hot, dry lands. The Elian River, like a blue scythe, gently meandered around the city, cutting across the land, annually filling it with rich, black silt. It transformed the dry, dusty fields to a lush green, teeming with life, showing Ashar's favor. In the center of the city sat the jewel, the palace of Darkazarn. Getting through the avenue to the palace was another problem. Pilgrims in long white robes flooded the main walkway. The eve of Al-Majid began the 7-week period of redemption, the holiest time of the year, when people came from all over the Dominion to give alms at the Temple of White. The value of their offering had to be equal to their wrongdoings of the past year. As he came into view of the palace, he took a moment to take it all in. Bhryen had lived at the palace with his older sister Daria for 5 years now. He was all of 14, almost a man by some counts, yet, as often as he had seen it, the wonder of this view still took his breath away. Within the palace grounds, a stone arch flanked with obelisks inscribed the Dominion's glorious past. Expansive avenues traced the 4 directions of the wind quartering the grounds. Made with quarried white rock, these pathways gave a slow gradient leading to the white marble palace. Facing the southern gate, a row of black granite lions with their front paws upraised towered over anyone who would approach the palace. They were symbols of protection, but also intimidation, dwarfing anyone who walked beneath their claws. From a huge square base rose the 7 ascending tiers of the palace, each smaller than the one below it, converging upward to a single apex. Polished marble walls gleamed as iridescent pearl, reflecting the blue sky, so that the walls seemed to disappear against the azure backdrop. Flourishing garden courtyards bordered each level of the palace, which, from afar, appeared to be suspended in the air. The opalescent palace of Darkazarn, wreathed by lush greenery, rose up, as if part of the cloudless sky, to an apex that was topped with a crystal capstone. The crystal refracted the sun's rays into the 7 sacred colors of light. Under that capstone, on the highest level of the palace, the Temple of the White Order watched over all of Darkazarn. Looking up, Bhryen smiled, continuing his path. Maneuvering past the throng of pilgrims, Bhryen made his way up the wide steps of the palace, which was flanked on both sides with a row of heavy-set guards. Bared shoulders gleaming, they held onto tall shafts affixed with wicked sickle blades. Eaters of heads, the weapons were called. Sharp enough to decapitate an enemy in a breath. The guards stood there with their heads shaven and their faces impassive, as if they too were made of stone. Their long, dark blue kilts gave them away as members of the Eternals, guards bound only to serve the crown. Just the sight of them was enough to give an intruder pause. They watched as the pilgrims gave their alms to the priest at the entrance and turned to leave. They did not stop Bhryen from entering the palace. Bhryen's black hair, newly cropped, set him apart as one bound to the temple. The stiff brown vest draping below his knees identified him as a scribe, or at least someone who would soon become one. All boys dreamed of braiding their dark hair like a warrior would. But no, he would never wear the long black braids of the warrior caste. He was not like the other boys at the palace. By way of the temple records, every pure-blood Ellarian could prove that he came from a legacy of honor, loyal to the crown and to the path of light. Honor stood highest among virtues for the Ellarians, a part of the code of the warrior. Only with honor could a man one day hope to join the heroes in the halls of valor and have a song to ensure that everyone would know his name. A hero's name, etched in time when his name was sung often enough, became an instrument of power. Those without honor were ghosts, their lives of no consequence, blown away with the wind, unwanted, as if they had never existed. Bhryen was an orphan, but not knowing who his parents were gave him the chance to prove himself. The names of his parents were unrecorded and unremembered as ghosts. His oldest memories were of a monastery, waiting with his older sister. No one knew who they were or where they came from. No one bothered to find out. They were nameless, like the undead, shapeless spirits drawn to the shadows and condemned.
Sample complete. Ready to continue?